In Transition to College Math today, we are going to look at measures of dispersions, 12.3. We're going to take some notes today, and we're going to see how we can use these in our statistics project. So our measures of dispersion are used to describe the spread of data items in a data set. The first measure of dispersion we have is our range. That is just your highest value minus your lowest value. And that tells us, how spread out our data is. The higher the range, the greater the variation. What we're really going to focus on today is the standard deviation. That is dependent on all of the data items. The smaller the standard deviation, the less variation there is among the data items. And we call this average distance from the mean. And we know what a mean is, so that's what we're going to be doing today. So the standard deviation. In order to compute standard deviation, it is necessary to find out by how much each data item deviates from the mean. So first we're going to find the mean, then we're going to subtract the mean from each data item. So we've got some data we're going to look at. So here's our first piece of data. We're going to find the deviation from the mean for the following data: 778, 472, 147, 106, and 82. And if I add those up, I get 1585. And if I divide by my 5 data items, my mean is 317. We've been assessed on that. We know how to find a mean. So then to find the deviation from the mean, we take our data item. So let's go 778 minus 317. So that one deviates from the mean by a distance of 461. 472 minus 317, 155. 147 minus 317 is negative 170. 106 minus 317 is negative 211. And then finally 82 minus 317 is negative 235. So these are the deviations from the mean. The next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to calculate the standard deviation. Now I will have these steps written out for you, but let's follow along. So we subtracted from the mean to find this number. So the next step is to square each one of those numbers. 461 squared, so this is all calculator work. Definitely going to need a good calculator for this section. Negative 170 squared, 211, and negative 235. Good. So we've got that work done. Now the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add those up. I think that gets us 365,192. And then we're going to divide by how many there was minus 1. So divided by 4, and that gets us 912, 91,298. We take the square root of that number, and our standard deviation is 302.15, which is kind of a high standard deviation for 5 data points. So if we look at that data, our range of 778 to 82 was a high range, so our standard deviation is also quite high. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to type in how to find our standard deviation. So the first step is find the mean. You've got that down. Find the deviation from the mean. Now, if you want to write underneath that, that means subtract the data item from the mean. And we just showed all those steps up above. Square each of those numbers. So square every number from number 2. Add up the squared deviations. Divide the sum from number 4 by n minus 1. So 1 less than the data items is what I would write down. And then finally 6, take the square root of number 5. That is your standard deviation. And let's give it a shot. Find the standard deviation of the data: 197, 187, 160, 175, 163, 174, 173, 168, 169. All right, so add them up, find the mean. The mean should be 174. Then I would like you to show very specifically in your notebook 197 minus 174, 187 minus 174. Show all the subtraction. Then square each number. So as we start squaring each number, we want to write those numbers down. (21) square root 0 squared is 0, negative 1 squared, negative 6 squared, and finally 5 squared. We have to add those numbers up, and I think we get 1078 divided by n minus 1. So there were 9 items, so we're going to divide by 8. I think we get 134.75. Finally, following our steps rewritten above, the square root of 134.75 is 11.608. This number is our standard deviation. Following the steps, plugging it in, being precise with our numbers, we can get there. And on your own, I would like you to find the standard deviation of 72, 70, 68, 76, 77, 60, and 69. Should get a mean of 70.2, and I think a standard deviation of 5.2. All right, let's work on some homework.